of Ruth is one of my favorite books in the scriptures. And it's a story of redemption and a story of Hesed. Hesed is this understanding of who God is. To practice Hesed is to believe in a God who is steadfast and loyal. It's this idea that loving kindness is how God lives, and therefore how we should live. And the book of Ruth is about that, about loving kindness, about loyal love, about steadfast love. So the story begins by saying Elimelech decided to move his family to Moab because there was no bread in the land of bread. What it doesn't tell you is that the book of Judges, which just ended, was a time when the people who are supposed to be living under the rule of God, living as if God is present and with them and guiding them, had decided to listen to their own selves. And things have started to fall apart. And part of that falling apart is a famine in the land. And so Elimelech and his family flee from Bethlehem to Moab. And in Moab, the family, as refugees families do, encounter a lot of troubles. Elimelech dies while they're there. And then the sons. So this is why I read the translation I did. It says in the New Revised Standard Version, so the version that would be in the pews, that the sons took wives, which sounds normal, right? Kind. They went out and found women they were in love with, and they got married, right? That's what we assume. But the took here is to remind us of the took at the end of Judges, in which a whole bunch of children are slaughtered and a whole bunch of women are raped. And so that implies that those sons abducted those Moabite women to be their wives. So it makes me wonder, how did Ruth go from being an abductee to being someone who says some of the most powerful words that are in the Bible? How did she change from being someone who didn't have a choice about her life into being someone who makes a choice about her life? Because as the story continues, those sons also die. And a famine comes upon the land in Moab. And Naomi, at this point, who is without a husband and without sons, so she has no one there to take care of her, to provide for her, decides that at this point, with nothing left, she'll return home where at least there is family there that she can be with. And so she sets out on the journey, but as they're walking, she realizes she needs to release her daughter-in-laws. She needs to let them go back to their families. And so she tells them to return to their homes, that they had treated her with loving kindness, with steadfast love, with loyalty, the way God has been loyal. And so she invites them to go back. Go back where they can find husbands, where they can find someone in their family to take care of them. And Orpah kisses Naomi and decides to head home. And Ruth chooses different. Ruth chooses to stay with Naomi And Naomi, as they continue walking, tells her again, come on, you need to turn back. You need to go back to your family. And that's when Ruth says those words that we often say in marriage ceremonies. Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you. That at some point, Ruth had changed. She had been transformed from an abductee to someone who cares deeply about her mother-in-law. And how many of you would make that same choice with your mother-in-laws? How many of you would choose to stay there instead of going back to your brothers and sisters, to your moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles? How many of you would choose to stay with your mother-in-law? But Ruth chooses that. She chooses to begin on that journey, to begin on a new path, a new way of being. She chooses loving kindness. She chooses loyal love. She chooses hesed. As I was doing research this week on this passage, Marcy Glass wrote about what would it mean to be and to live as if we believed that your people are my people. What would it look like to be in a world where we believe that was who we were called to be? To see the world from the eyes that Ruth saw them. That when we looked out and we saw other people, we believed in that loyal love of God, that steadfast love, that loving kindness that sees another person and believes that person is part of our group. That your people are my people. How does that change who we are? To believe your people are my people. Does that transform how we look at the people we encounter in our lives? When we see, as we have this week, as there are 2 trials going on about people killed in gun violence, what if we saw those people killed by gun violence as our people? That your people are my people. Does it transform how we respond to gun violence? Your people are my people. How does that transform how we look at what is happening in Palestine and Israel right now? Where because Israel believed that there was an imminent attack coming, they decided to bomb Gaza. What if they started seeing each other as people that belong together? As people that God chooses to be together? Would that change what it looks like? I mean, we could say the same thing about Ukraine and Russia, right? If they chose to believe that your people are my people, would that transform how they react to each other? I mean, progress was made in that campaign in that we know that Ukraine is the breadbasket of much of the world. And they let ships go out this week to feed the world, to feed those who are hungry. If your people are my people, how does it make us respond when we see the images of those boats going across the Mediterranean and being flooded and sinking? As rescue ships are coming to take them and put them on and hopefully save them, as people die in that passage from Africa to Europe. And as they get on the boat and they try to make landfall, Italy and Spain often say no. And then you have this boat full of people seeking a home. If your people are my people, does it transform how you look at those refugees trying to cross the Mediterranean? If your people are my people, what does it look like when we know that there is major flooding happening or happened in Kentucky and West Virginia, in places that are already so poor and under-resourced? If your people are my people, does it change how we respond to those people in crisis? Does it change how we reflect what our government should do to people who are hurting and in need? If your people are my people, does it change how we respond to homelessness? I mean, this one is a current one in Fremont, right? Where they are trying to transform the Motel 6 into a place that can house and be home for those without a home. And the people in the neighborhood are like, no, not in my backyard. But if your people are my people, do we say no? Or do we figure out a way that people can have a place to live? A place to call home? Because that's what this story is about, right? Ruth and Naomi leave Moab in search of home, in search of a place to belong, in search of a place to be healed. Because at the moment, Naomi says, you cannot call me that name anymore. I am not pleasant. I am bitter. I have lost my husband and children. I have lost my home. I am bitter. And this story is going to be about the transformation of Naomi. From pleasant to bitter to what happens next. How will Naomi experience the loving kindness of God? How will she experience that sense that your people are my people? That the people of Bethlehem, will they take care of her? Will they help her? Will they transform her life? Will she move out of bitterness? And what about Ruth? Ruth is making this decision to leave everything she knows, her language, her people, her customs, and move to a place where she doesn't know how she will be met, where she doesn't know what will happen, but she knows that she can't leave Naomi alone, that she can't let her go on her own, that she needs to be there to make sure that she will be fed and housed and clothed, that somebody is there to take care of her. And that's why she says, your people are my people. Doesn't that transform us? To really truly believe that your people are my people should change how we view everyone we encounter. It takes that message that Jesus gives us of loving your neighbor and says, not only are you loving your neighbor and loving your enemies, but you see them as your people. You see and believe that they belong with you in everything that happens, that they deserve all that you have, that we set up a life together that makes that possible, that everyone becomes our people. Amen.